The role of the captain has changed to recognise the partnership between the umpires, players and the captain in managing player behaviour on court.
Goal defence, we've given your goal shooter an official caution.
This change formalises the option for the umpire to enlist the assistance of the captain in addressing any player's behaviour which is causing concern. If the captain is not on the court, an on-court captain will be advised to the umpires.
Before we talk about game management, it is important to note that the rules remain unchanged in relation to a player's responsibility.
Players on the court are expected to respond to rulings by the umpires and adjust their play accordingly. Similar requirements apply to team officials and bench players. A player who infringes any part of the foul play rule, which is Rule 13.2, will be disciplined.
The discipline section of the rulebook has been updated to provide a more clearly graded structure for umpires managing the game, to give increased clarity to players and coaches, to provide greater consistency between umpires and to provide support for the umpires to work together. In addition to the normal sanctions, an umpire may caution a player. A player is advised that the specified behaviour must change, issue an official warning. A player is warned that a suspension will follow if the behaviour specified continues. Suspend a player. The rule now specifies that the length of time for the suspension is 2 minutes. Order a player off.
A decision to give an official warning, to suspend a player or order a player off will be considered to have been made jointly by the two umpires and is thus binding on the co-umpire. The umpires may confer before deciding on the action to be taken. The controlling umpire should ensure the co-umpire is aware of the action taken and, if appropriate, the reasons for it.
Remember, the rules remain unchanged in relation to an umpire's responsibilities. It is the umpire's responsibility to control the match according to the rules, apply the rules fairly, communicate clearly and maintain a calm and decisive control. It's also important to know that the only time an umpire may advance a sanction is for delaying play, which is dealt with under the unfair play rule as part of the foul play section.
Coaches have a responsibility to ensure that their players understand the game management section of the rules and what each section means. Players should listen carefully to what the umpire is saying. This will allow them to be sure if they have been cautioned, warned, suspended or ordered off.
Foul play is defined as anything a player does within the field of play that is contrary to the letter and spirit of the rules of the game or does not meet accepted standards of good sportsmanship. It includes unfair play, dangerous play and misconduct. Let's now have a look at these in more detail. Delaying play. A player may not intentionally waste time or delay play. The umpire will award a penalty pass which will be advanced unless the non-offending team is disadvantaged. The player concerned will also be cautioned.
When sanctioning a player for delaying play, the penalty pass may only be advanced up to half a third, and this may be to inside the goal circle if the infringement is in the goal third. The infringer is to stand out of play at the new position, except if it is in an offside area, when the infringer moves to the edge of this area. To caution the player for delaying play, the umpire would state something like, "Wing defence, this is a caution for deliberate delay of play."
Intentional infringing. A player must not intentionally infringe any rules. If the intentional infringing occurs when the ball is not in play, the umpire will award a free pass for minor infringements or a penalty pass for major infringements. If the action is considered appropriate, the player is cautioned.
The umpire would award a penalty pass for intentional infringing. The player would also be cautioned. And if the player continues to infringe, either an official warning would be given or, if considered appropriate, the player would be suspended. To caution the player for intentional infringing, the umpire would state something like, "Goal attack, this is a caution for intentional contact."
Persistent infringing. A player must not persist in repeatedly infringing a rule or combination of rules.
Players are expected to comply with the rules and to respond to rulings by the umpires and adjust their play accordingly. If a player is sanctioned for the same action on a number of occasions, they should make a genuine attempt to change the action to avoid being sanctioned again. If the player continues to engage in the action in spite of being sanctioned and does not appear to be making any genuine attempt to change and play within the scope and spirit of the rules, the umpire may determine that the player is persistently infringing and may sanction accordingly.
However, this rule must be applied with common sense. An umpire must consider the level and skill of the player as well as the intent. A player may infringe the rules a number of times in the game context, but if it is in a legitimate attempt to defend or gain possession of the ball, it would not be considered persistent. Similarly, a beginner or unskilled player who may make continued errors due to a lack of skill would not be considered to be persistently infringing. If infringements are considered to be persistent, the umpire would award a penalty pass. The player would also be cautioned, and if the player continues to infringe, either an official warning would be given or, if considered appropriate, the player would be suspended. To caution the player for persistent infringing, the umpire would state, "Centre, this is a caution for persistent offside."
Intimidation. A player, either with or without the ball, may not intimidate an opponent by using intentional behaviour, including verbal comments, designed to distract.
Intimidation has been moved from the obstruction rule to now sit in game management. When determining whether a player should be sanctioned for intimidation, it is important to understand the definition and intent of the foul play rule. That is, anything a player does that is contrary to the letter and spirit of the rules of the game or does not meet accepted standards of good sportsmanship.
In determining intimidation, the umpire must assess whether the intentional behaviour of the player designed to distract is contrary to the letter and spirit of the rules of the game, or do not meet accepted standards of good sportsmanship.
Examples may include deliberately waving a hand or hands in the face of an opposing player or stamping feet on the ground in an intentional way to distract a player. The umpire would award a penalty pass for intimidation and the player would be cautioned.
Retaliation. A player must not retaliate even if an opponent infringes the rules. An example of retaliation may be two players contesting the ball and one player pushes the other. In retaliation, the player pushes the player back.
The umpire would award a penalty pass for retaliation and the player would be cautioned. If the umpire considered the action to be serious, the player would be given an official warning or suspended.
Dangerous play. A player may not take any action, either deliberate or accidental, that could affect the safety of another player. Such actions may include, but are not limited to, punching, kicking or striking a player with any part of the body, tripping or pushing a player, causing a player in the air to fall by moving into the path of that player. Misconduct is any behaviour that is contrary to the accepted standards of good sportsmanship. This includes dissent with an umpire. A player may not dispute a ruling given by an umpire or direct any offensive, insulting or abusive language and/or gestures at an umpire. If an umpire's call is not clearly heard, a player may ask the umpire to repeat the infringement penalised or seek clarification of where a sanction is to be taken.